I wanted to share that this evening you'll hear from 4 expanded learning professionals who work at Beacon Community Schools. And to give us some context, we're just going to do a quick Beacon 101. So this is something that we do with new staff who enter the Beacon network or new stakeholders in the Beacon network. So we wanted to just share some of this information with you all. So we can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so what is a San Francisco Beacon? Again, you'll hear from folks who are deeply within our Beacon Community School community. And so a San Francisco Beacon is a lead agency, so a community-based organization or CBO, partnered with city and school district investments. So they're invested in by the Department of Children, Youth and Families and the San Francisco Unified School District. They are also a high needs elementary and or K through 8 school. And we're also at all middle schools in the San Francisco Unified School District. So these school sites utilize the community school framework and are supported by my organization, the San Francisco Beacon Initiative, that I'll talk a little bit more about in a second. But this is the equation, if you will, that makes up a Beacon community school. In a moment, we're going to play a video from the Institute for Educational Leadership about community schools, what is a community school. But prior to that, I wanted to share just a little bit of housekeeping. So during this time, we're going to share some information. We'll do this panel, but if you have any questions or just want to share like your connection to Beacons or community schools, please feel free to drop that in the chat, and we'll be making sure to monitor the chat regularly. I also wanted to just remind everyone, you probably got this via email, but we'll have a Q&A at the end of our panel this evening. So please feel free to, drop any information or questions that you have in our chat. All right, so we talked about what a Beacon Community School is, and now we're going to just play a quick video about what are community schools in general. And we hope that this information will give you a little bit more background and context into the community of folks we have here this evening. So you can go ahead. Thank you.
All children are filled with light, fire, and wonder. Every child needs nurturing and care for their light to shine, their fire to burn, and their sense of wonder to expand. But right now, our country remains divided by predictable patterns, high rates of violence, and a lack of connection. And in the middle of it all, our students are falling through the cracks. Too often, kids come to school in a state that interferes with learning, carrying the baggage of fear, hunger, physical pain, and psychological distress. They don't have opportunities to play and learn after school and in the summer, and college seems like a faraway dream. It's only by coming together as a community that we can create thriving students who will climb to meet their full potential. That's going to take work. It's going to take a change in mindset. We must break the system built on division and build in its place a new model that connects individuals, families, neighborhoods, schools, and other institutions together with the understanding that our fates are linked. This country can only reach its potential if we help our children develop the skills required for success in school, career, and life. The goal is thriving students. The vision is community schools. Community schools are welcoming, fun, and attractive spaces for students and families to use before, during, and after the school day. In this approach, the school acts as the hub of the community, working with public and private partners to serve children, their families, and their neighborhood. Youth development opportunities, health, and social services are not seen as extra or complementary. They are integrated into the fabric of the school as an essential part of its DNA. Every community school responds to local needs, but all community schools provide a safe, healthy, and supportive environment for students. Collaborate with community partners to enhance learning and create enriching opportunities for students. Develop the knowledge and skills needed for students to succeed in college, career, and life. More and more schools and communities across the country are working toward the day when every school is a community school, providing every child with high-quality instruction with a focus on college and career, expanded learning opportunities beyond the school day, health, nutrition, and physical education, and strong family and community engagement. That includes access to crucial family support systems, such as housing, language learning, and employment. The road is long and the work is hard, but it's the most important work there is.
Right. So, paired with the idea of what community schools are, they're really built on a bedrock of shared leadership. They assume that all adults and all community members are invested in young people's success. And the folks on this panel this evening will be able to share a little bit more about their role at their community school. I'm going to go quickly and share some information about like who leads our community schools here in or Beacon Community Schools here in San Francisco. So the SF Beacon lead agencies, there are 13 of them. There are organizations that are hyper local, like Real Options for City Kids, all the way to organizations that are widely recognized nationally, like the YMCA branches. Um, and then if we go to the next slide, you'll see our map of Beacon Community Schools and see that there are 27 across the school district. So we are in 11 elementary schools, 3 K through 8 schools, and then again, all 13 middle schools in the city. If anyone has any connections or is a community member or has even gone to some of these schools, we would love to see that in the chat. So if you want to just share that in the chat, if you are familiar with beacons, attended a beacon, we'd just love to know. So please feel free to pop that in the chat. So as I mentioned, all of our Beacon community schools are supported by the Beacon Initiative. And if we go to the next slide, I'll just talk a little bit more about SFBI, the organization that Jess and I work at. So our mission at SFBI is to amplify the leadership of community school professionals to empower youth, families, and communities to create thriving schools together. The way we do that is by providing leaders with coaching, peer learning, and best practices that increase student achievement, belonging, success, and joy. And our vision is that, by transforming schools, we're able to build a more just and equitable community for all of our young people. And so, a part of the beauty of SFBI's work as a connecting organization or as, an intermediary technical assistance provider, if you will, is we're able to bring people together to get to the heart of the work. There's a lot of peer learning. There's a lot of, sharing and being together in community to understand the best practices that work for our young people. And so I'm so excited that we were able to bring these 4 amazing panelists together for this evening's workshop. So without further ado, let's welcome our panelists and maybe we can get them spotlit and we'll start our questions. That's our evaluation link. Spoiler, there will be an evaluation at the end. But I think maybe let's start with some introductions. And we can go in order, maybe John Michael, Justine, Holly, and Navita. But if we could get started just with, your names, your sites, your roles, and your years in your roles, just go ahead and introduce yourself to our group here.
Good evening, everybody. My name is John Michael Williams. I am a student success coordinator. I am at MLK Middle School. As far as the coordinator role, I just got a coordinator role this past year, but I've been a student advocate since 2012 at the same school, at the same site.
Thanks, John Michael.
Hi, everyone. My name is Justine, she, her. I'm at Francisco Middle School. I'm the community school coordinator, and this is actually my first year too in this role. But I've been with the SFUSD school district for 4 years. But I'll talk about my journey till I got here later.
Thanks, Justine.
Hi, everyone. My name is Holly. I use they, them pronouns. I am currently at Marina Middle School as the family engagement coordinator, and I am hitting my 3 years. Already have hit my 3 years.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Hi, I'm Navita. I've been working at MLK for, I believe, might be going on my 5th or 6th year. I am a student success advocate as of October of last year. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for introducing yourselves to our group. I think what would be interesting for our group today is if you could just tell us about your pathways into your careers. And if, please highlight any education or work experience that helped you develop your expertise. And we can go in the same order.
Whoever put me first, that's crazy. So I guess my pathway started at a very young age. In high school, I was a peer mediator. So that kind of started me kind of towards this path. And then, doing youth work at my church. And then in 2006, somebody took a chance on me, or worked at an organization called Brothers Against Guns in San Francisco in 2006. So I've been there since 2006 to 2012, where when they lost funding, my boss at the time really liked what I did and didn't want me to lose a job. So got in contact with the executive director of the YMCA, and she had a spot for me, and I've been at the Y since 2012. And it's just experience, right? Just growing up in the neighborhoods and being a kid in school and being that person that would always get into trouble, and wishing I had somebody in the school looking out for me, but I didn't. I had my mom and I had my goddad, and um, just want to be that person for them. So that's pretty much where I'm at now, and I love what I do. I hope I answered that question.
Yes, thank you, John Michael. Yeah.
Okay, I'm next. Okay, so for me, I guess for context, born and raised in SF, went to all the SFUSD schools. I went to City College for 3 years. And I originally thought I wanted to work like in a hospital and like healthcare like that. And then I failed bio and I was like, oh god damn, like what do I do with my life now? So I like reassessed and I was like, oh, I'm taking a lot of like psych courses. So like why don't I do that? Because that's a lot more interesting to me. And then I transferred to UCI for psych and minored in medical anthropology. But I graduated in 2020, which was the year of our pandemic. So no one was doing anything anyways. And so after graduating, like that was my big goal. And after that, I was like, I don't know what to do with my life afterwards because that was like my goal for a really long time. So it was the year of the pandemic, and then it's like I'm gonna just chill and like celebrate, my goal. And then everyone started posting, they're starting their job, and I was like, oh, we were actually looking for things during this time. So I had like my existential crisis. Was looking on LinkedIn, and I actually got recruited to be part of AmeriCorps, and I did Healthy Choices AmeriCorps, which was coordinating the mentoring programs in schools. So that was my first experience working in education. Like um, in college, I was part of like mentoring programs and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, like this seems like something up my alley. I like really doing this stuff. And then, I fell in love working with youth and like, schools. Never in a million years I thought I'd be working at a school, but look at me now, 4 years in, and many more years to go. So I did Healthy Choices because that was only a 1 year term. And I was like, oh, what do I do with my life now? And luckily I found out what a CHOW was, which was a community health outreach worker. And they're in the wellness center. And I did that for 3 years. And again, I love what I did, working with students, more direct service. And then our school became a community school. And I was like, you know what? I think I can apply what I do more strategically, more like bigger pictures stuff. So now I'm the community school coordinator. And I have been for like 3 weeks.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, from what you're sharing and John Michael was sharing, it seems like, the journey sometimes isn't always linear. Sometimes there are stops, sometimes there are like other paths that you turn. So thank you both for sharing that. And I will pass it to Holly.
Yes. So actually, I was also raised in the public school system and in the community. So I used to live near in Chinatown, and so I grew up with that community, right? That wealth of knowledge. And so in elementary school, I went to the after school program at Garfield Elementary School. So that was my first taste of after school program, and really, right, like my first taste of understanding the experiences of my low income immigrant family, my family who did not know how to speak English, right? and who's navigating the public school system in the US. In middle school, I went to Presidio Middle School, I know, which is now the competitor for Marina Middle School. But there I joined the YMCA program called Youth in Government. And so that was a program within the YMCA that allowed youth to really understand like debate, right? And to participate in like what they do is like a mock government and a mock trial. And so I did that. And I also then was also a volunteer at the Tell High summer programs. And so then in middle school, that was then where I really like started to understand, right? Like being with youth and working with them as a young person. And also my first taste of the YMCA. In high school, when I went to Galileo High School, I also joined their Futurama after school program. And so that was my other taste of all these after school programs. And I was also a youth organizer with the Chinese Progressive Association in Chinatown. And when was it? In 2015 was when we actually founded the Our Healing in Our Hands program and campaign that has successfully won over $1 million in the school district to really provide right peer mentoring, peer resources, and also in high schools all over at San Francisco, where high schoolers are able to learn how to be there for each other, right? And be that sort of peer resource. And in college, I worked at a student retention program in my college. And so really, right, like my pathways to becoming a family engagement coordinator was always just sprinklings down in my journaling, in my journey. But I actually never knew what a family engagement coordinator was until I was looking at the YMCA website when I was applying for jobs. And I was like, huh, I feel like that's something I would like to do, right? Like I love talking to families. I love listening to their experiences, and also coming from a background where the students I serve, right, and the families right now in Marina are really the same and similar experiences of what I went through as a young person, and really like how do we build that village and support network that is so essential to a young person's life, and really being able to understand like, hey, I know what you're talking about, right? Like you live in Chinatown. I know all these community organizations that are able to be to help you. And so I think really like my journey has been a full circle.
Thank you so much, Holly. I'm really hearing this, like, your experiences shaping your career path, but also a pairing of things that you like doing, like talking to families, really led you to the role you have now. Awesome.
Let's see. I grew up in San Francisco with a really big family. I definitely was someone who participated in the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club. My mom sent us off to camp like every summer. It was something that was definitely happening. I also just started working very young. So I did Youth in Action and I did my EAP, where I also started working in schools. Not necessarily something that I thought I was gonna do, but once I started working, I was like, this sucks. So maybe we should go back to school. And I started doing city college, and I was there for so long, not knowing what I wanted to do. And then I took a sociology class that I found really interesting. So I decided to pursue that for my bachelor's degree. And then a friend was working with the Bayview YMCA at Burton and was like, hey, there's an opening, you should apply. And I was like, okay. And I would say I started my position thinking like, I don't know what I really want to do. I think maybe I want to go into social work or counseling or psychology or maybe sociology. And so I was like, I don't know. And bachelor's degree, master's, I feel like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. So let's work for a little bit and let's see where it goes. So I started working with the YMCA, first with elementary and now with middle school. Um, my position has changed like every, I don't know, 2 years. So I started off as a program leader, and then I became a student support specialist, and now I am a student success advocate. And I also teach swimming to the kids. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Navita. I love that you kind of said, when you were in Maif and you're like, no, this isn't for me. And then you kind of just came back, came back around. So that's awesome. All right. The next question that we have for you all is, what are some highlights of your day-to-day work? So, for example, for someone that's just learning about your particular role, what are some highlights? What are some of the things that you do day to day that you want to share with our audience here? We can go John Michael first, if that's okay. We're just going to keep looping back around.
Okay. Good Lord, where do I start? Um, First of all, it's never a dull moment here at MLK. Never. There's never been a time where I've been like, man, this time is going by slow, ever. Um, so it's always exciting here. But pretty much day to day, come in, um, meet with the teachers, meet with the counseling staff, meet with the kids, set goals, um, check in with them, roam the hallways, make sure the kids that I work with are not roaming the hallways themselves. Um, Doing little activities at lunchtime. That's during the school day. And after school, because I've infused case management and flag football together, and so we actually have a whole team and a part of the league. And so after school, football practice, and then after practice, make sure they go to homework club to make sure assignments is getting done. So yeah, that's pretty much my day to day. Checking with teachers, make sure progress reports are getting filled out because I do progress reports on all my kids every 2 weeks to see their progress, and also talk to the families as well. Their families, make sure that they know what's going on with their child, and see if they need any resources or need any help, personally, groceries or anything like that.
Awesome. You are connecting with the young people in many different ways. You're their touch point in a lot of ways. For our folks in the audience who have ever been interested in coaching some sports, you'll notice on John Michael's background, it says, calls him coach. So, multiple hats, but coaching seems like a really fun one. All right. Thank you for sharing. I'll pass it over to Justine.
Um, for me, I think a highlight is obviously like working with our youth and like empowering them for leadership and like really hearing their voice and choice in things that we do. When I was a child, so the community health outreach worker, I started doing yearbook because I did yearbook when I was in high school, and um, the teacher who was doing it before didn't want to do it anymore. And I was like, you know what? Like, I love doing that stuff. Like, I'm gonna take it over. And that is one of the highlights again for this year. This is my third year, and like really getting to build upon like projects and groups like that, and expand to see what it is now and what it still can be, and like making sure that whatever that I do, I really have our youth voice in it and like leading it. I think another thing I want to highlight is like building relationships with them. Now that this is my fourth year working at Francisco and like being in the school district in general, like I saw the sixth graders like go from sixth to eighth grade, and like seeing them during graduation made me like so sad and like sympathy and be like, oh my gosh, so they're my little babies graduating, and they're like in high school now. And when I first started, I had a mentee, and now she's a junior in college. Or no, sorry, junior in high school. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not that old yet in high school. But I still keep in touch with her, and like, she just had her 16th birthday, and I was like, oh my God, where's the time going? But yeah, I think that's like the really cool thing is like, you build these relationships and they trust you and like you're their safe person. We recently had an incident at our school, and we did a community circle, and I asked the students like, who is that safe adult here at school that you would tell something to? And a lot of them said me, and I was like, stop. But that just warms my heart. It's like I'm doing something right apparently, where they feel comfortable telling me things. So that's why I'm still here.
Thank you, Justine. Yeah, I love this like theme of being able to mix things you love or like interests that you have with your job, but then also this like really deep connection that you get to make with the young people. Thank you. Right, passing it back to Holly.
Yes. Yeah, I think what I've learned over my 3 years is really like family engagement is really student engagement, right? It's the symbiotic relationship that if you engage the students at your school, right, then you engage the families. If you engage the families, right, it's science, right? It's backed by science. It's backed by studies that when they say that you have to really build these relationships with the students and the families in order for students to do better in school, right? And for the school culture to be a positive one. And so I think my favorite part of being at a Beacon site, right, is that as a community school, we filled in the needs of what the school needs, right? So this year, coming into this year, we've never done supervision outside, right? Or during morning or supervision or lunch supervision. And the principal asked us this year to do that. And so, when we come in before, we'll walk around the yard and we'll supervise. And then during lunch, we'll also go walk around. And I love that part of the day is I first get in my steps. And also, really, I am able to meet students who I will probably never meet in my life because most of the time, I'm stuck in the office trying to plan family events and activities. And something else I'm doing now is the assistant principal wanted to start up a career girls club at Marina, and she's like, I don't have capacity. Is someone able to support me? And so I'm helping her with this club that we're doing, right, where students are able to understand and be exposed to careers that they probably have never heard of before, right? Like family engagement, and just like women STEM or just like women tech. And so I think it's really like being on my toes and like, yes, I'm planning creative and fun family events, right? We're planning 3 big community gatherings for this year. So in November, we're going to host a multicultural festival, the first annual one. And then in February of next year, we're going to do a school planning with the admin, right? Really trying to get family feedback on how we can improve the school. And then in April, we're going to host a talent show. And so I think it's really like these like fun events, right? Where the purpose, right, the really like secret purpose, right, that families don't know about is that we're bringing the families out to the school because most of our students are bused into Marina, right? So they don't live in the neighborhood, but then really for families to feel that community, right, that penguin community that we're always striving to communicate to them. And so, yeah, and I think lastly, because I am fluent in Cantonese, right, a lot of our families do speak Cantonese, so I think I really love roaming the halls. And if I see a family, right, or a parent, I introduce myself and I say, how can I help you? And I think like these are like really the opportunities where I get to really like disseminate information to them of like, oh, do you hear about this? Do you hear about that they otherwise wouldn't know about?
Awesome. Thank you. So again, like that theme of connection is really present in the work that these folks are doing, not even with the young people, but like their families and how that impacts the experience of our young people. Thank you for sharing, Holly. Pass it to Navita.
So the question is, what is our highlights for the day?
Yeah, so for someone who might just be learning about your role as a student success advocate, what would you say are some highlights of your day-to-day work?
So I definitely feel like when my clients are happy to see me and they're like, yes, let's go check in. I'm like, okay, let's go. Like, so also like when I feel like our relationship is deepening and they're sharing things that they haven't normally shared with me, and I'm learning more about them, about their family, or like what they do outside of school. Um, for sure. We also do supervise during lunchtime. So hanging out with kids, there's just like some kids that get drawn to you in when you're working at schools. And so it's kind of cool to like have some kids that are like, hey, walk with me. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. And I also support an after school, and I'm definitely someone who, when I create my enrichments, I want to do things that I know the kids want to do. So I always asking kids like, well, what do you think is going to be fun in after school? Or if you did this game, like, how would you change it? Um, so definitely like getting kids feedback and seeing what they like and then bringing that to them is definitely something. I did a cooking class for like 3 years, and kids loved it. And, I don't do it anymore, but I have a coworker who does it. So, definitely teaching kids like the skills that they might not learn in school or won't. learn in school, but that they're still interested in learning about. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. So I heard, I think a few of you talk about this. So I'm just going to open this up to the panel if you weren't already able to share this. The next question is, what is your why? Like, why do you continue doing the work you do? And if you've already spoken to it and feel like you have already shared, like, no need to repeat yourself, but for folks who might want to jump in on here, please share your why.
Yes, I'll go.
All right, I could go.
We'll have John Michael and then Navita, because John Michael, you're already spotlit.
I just feel like for me, my family wasn't involved in my academics as much, and yes, I like knew that school was important, but also like not my family were, I don't know, it wasn't really like, what do you do? What'd you do today? What'd you learn about? Kind of type things. And you know, I never really seen myself going to college or feeling like my family had money for me to go to college, but I definitely had staff at my high school who took me aside and was like, you can do college and you can be good at it. And I think you have more potential than you really know. And even if you just go to city college, like that's still a pathway. I had my college counselor tell me that I should just go to city college because my family doesn't have any money. And it was kind of discouraging me. But, you know, I did eventually end up going, and there was definitely people in my life who I could reach out to that were not my family, and helped guide me and helped push me and helped me continue to educate myself. And just, it's so important to have those people who might not be your family, but are willing to support you and spend time with you and push you to your full potential. So I feel like it's important to be that person to these kids, to be like, yeah, you can tell me stuff. And I'm not gonna tell anybody unless, you know, you're wanting to hurt someone or someone's gonna hurt you. But we can talk about stuff, and I think that's super important. And to just be like, well, I want you to have good grades, like I want to help you get your work done. And I just think that it's important to have that person. So um that's my why.
Awesome. Thank you, Navita. All right, John Michael, I'm waiting to hear this why.
All right. So I mentioned earlier about my godfather. My dad was not in my life. And so my godfather, who at the time was my pastor, came into my life at a very important age, which is middle school age. And my mom did the best she could, but she would not have done it, been able to handle me on her own. Um, and so he was there for me. I mean, through thick and thin. I put him through hell. I was not the best kid. Um, but he never left me, stuck by me. To this day, that's Pop, right? And so I want to be that for somebody. And doing this work over the years has it's my ministry. It's become my ministry. It's become my passion. Um, I'm in love with what I do. And so my why is these kids, and because somebody was there for me when I needed them. And so now I want to be there for somebody and help them get ready for the next level, which is high school and life. So that's my why. That's what keeps driving me is these kids, and they need people like us. They need people like us. And I wish I had somebody inside the school day to day, which would make it a lot easier for my mom. I got that, but I didn't back then. So now that they have this, then I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much, John Michael. Holly or Justine? Oh, Holly, I see you unmuted.
Yeah. I can go next. Yeah, I think when we are working in education, we have to acknowledge, right, that the education system is flawed, right, and has always been flawed. And I think it has harmed a lot of our communities, right? And the students that we've worked with, right? Thousands and thousands of years. And so I think coming from an ethnic studies background, I majored in Asian American studies and psychology when I was in college. I think it's really, really important. And for me, my why is that I believe that we are able to change things, right, and build a new society for these children who are like growing up. And I think, when people are doing their studies, right, they found that family engagement, right, has decreased, right, significantly when their students go to middle school, and that's because, right, parents have this idea, or families have this idea that only in elementary school, right, you have to hold your student's hand, and you are like so engaged, right, you participate in classroom activities, you like create parties for your students, but then right when they enter middle school in sixth grade, they drop that, right, because they believe, and they were which is good, right, they believe that the school will take care of their children, but actually now more than ever these children need you, right, need the families, right, and also need trusted adults like us to do this work. And so I think when I come, right, and I'm like thinking about, right, every day, right, like we have to think about we have to acknowledge what's happening in the world, right, they're suffering, and our children are suffering as well, right, they are not immune, right, to the violence that's happening in the world. And I think it's really important that, like, my why is that every day I know that even if it's just like with one student, that I acknowledge and listen to their lived experiences, right, and that I have an understanding of what is like relevant to them and what is happening in their communities, right, and integrating into that community and being able to really understand their whole story, right. I think a lot of the our beacon motto, or is acknowledging and building the whole child. And so I think that's very important, right? It's like you're not just only, right, caring about the academics like other folks have said, right, but you're really invested into their growth as a young person, right, their hobbies and their challenges as well. And then for them to know that you are going to be there with them, right? Right. And I think I've learned over years, like, we can't solve everything, right? Like, I'm not, we're not the saviors, right? But I think it's important for them to know that we are at least human, trying our very best to provide them the best that we can. And that sometimes, right, the world is just so messed up that we don't have these resources in order to really help them. I think it's that idea that I know that I believe that we are creating a different world every single day for them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Holly. Justine, I know you spoke a little bit about your why, but is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I can add some stuff. I think similar to what that has already been said, like having that supportive adult at school makes such a huge difference. Like when I was in school, I was fortunate enough, like elementary, middle, and high school, that I had at least one supportive adult that I trusted or could go to. So in high school, that was my freshman year English teacher, and then she became my yearbook teacher. So she saw me grow from like freshman and senior year. She always supported me. Like I would always felt like I could go talk to her about anything. And like that's what I hope I could also be for our students now too, right? I want to be able to empower our youth, because education and staff at schools really do like shape the future. And I want to help foster not just a love for learning, but also encouraging creativity and like providing the tools for them to navigate challenges. Because like mentioned, the world is like a messed up place. So like we should, if we can, like help them navigate as much as we can, to be successful in and outside of school, because they're in schools for, I forgot, like 8 hours. I don't know. They're in schools for a hell of a long time, right? So sometimes they're with us more than when they're with their family. So we have such potential to help shape who they are. And I think it's just inspiring in general to see how smart and talented our students are. And it's just giving them the opportunity to grow and thrive. So I think just to sum it all up, I just want to continue to create that positive impact and help reimagine schools to support youth, and extension our community, which is like our family and our partners, and like that's what a community school is.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so this next question will be our last question, and then we're going to jump into a Q&A from our audience. So if you have those questions, please feel free to save them, and you can unmute when it's Q&A time to ask, or you're also welcome to drop them in the chat and I can read them out. All right, panelists. So our last question is, what advice would you give to someone interested in getting into the expanded learning field? So what would you tell someone who's like, hey, Justine, hey, John Michael, hey, Holly, hey, Navita, I want to do what you do. And maybe we can go back in our original order. And so I'm going to pass it over to John Michael.
Oh, good. Definitely gotta be passionate about this work because the kids are gonna know right off the bat if you're not real or not. Um, as it was said, I think it was Justine that said these kids are smart as hell. They're hella smart, and they are a great judge of character. Um, so gotta be passionate about this. If you're not passionate about this, you are wasting your time, and this job will not be fulfilling for you. So definitely gotta have a passion for this type of work because we are in here, and me, Navita, Justine, Holly, all of us, we're in here to help change and mold and shift lives. So gotta have passion.
Awesome. Thank you. All right.
I think, you know, if you're thinking about it or you're hesitant and like going into this field or just you just don't know, I think just try it out, right? Because like I mentioned, like I didn't know what I wanted to do straight out of college. Like I was like, oh, is this the right thing for me? Like, what am I doing with my life? And like I think just try it. You never know unless you give something a try. And you can get that experience by like volunteering or like interning or shadowing. Like, I mean, if you want to shadow, I'm open to it. You can shadow me. You can ask me more questions because yeah, like working in a school, there's so many different opportunities or like positions, right? Like I didn't know a child was a thing. Like you can be a para, like it's not just being a teacher or like a principal, right? Those are like the big titles that everyone thinks about like working with students, like, but that's not the only thing you can do. Um yeah, I think just yeah, like being passionate and having an open mind. Because obviously if you can't connect with the youth, like you're not going to have a good time. It's just going to be a miserable for the rest of your 8 hours for the rest of the school year. So again, I think just try it if you're willing to do it for at least a year.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes. I think my first advice would be if you have not taken an ethnic studies course, I think it is very important, right, to just take like Asian American Studies 101, right? Black Studies 101 or African American Studies 101. I think um in this world right now, right? We need to be culturally responsive and culturally relevant when we're like speaking to the students and when we are, you know, even if you want to be a teacher, right? Like these are things that will help set you up for success. So I think, yeah, try an ethnic studies course and I think you'll learn a lot. And I think secondly is right, as other folks have said, right? These students are smart, they're brave, you know, they're doing something new every day. And I think for us, like you also have to be brave, right? You also have to be brave, right? And like you have to be brave to be weird, you know, like these kids are weird and they, right? And if you're like judging them, like we can't judge them, but if you're like, it's like we have to be brave to also model like what being brave is and also like what is okay in the world, right? Um, and I think when they're like being shut down, right? Or in their like when there's like strict, how do I say it? Like during their school day, right? They may not be able to do as many things as they would like to or show their actual true selves. I think it's important for us to also be our true selves when we're doing this work, right? So like that's how, like dress how you want to, right? Like and be like vulnerable for them because that might be also one of the only opportunities they have where they will see someone like you, right? In a position of like a trusted adult, right? Because their families may not be that one for them. And so I think it's important for us to really be our true selves when we show up and also be brave. You know, I've learned that you have to apologize to these kids. If you did something wrong, like you have to apologize because they'll call you out, right? And they will get mad at you. And it is also important for us to show that even though we're adults, like, you know, we're not, there is a power dynamic, but we're not better than them, right? We will still make mistakes. And it's important for them to see that adults can make mistakes as well and also take accountability for what we have done.
Thank you, Holly. All right, Navita, any advice for our audience? No?
Might be some tech issues.
Yeah, maybe some technical difficulties. The muting and unmuting can be challenging. Oh, I think we might have a frozen panelist on our hands. Yeah, sorry, Navita. I think you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. If you'd like, you can drop your advice in the chat and I can read it out. But while Navita is maybe navigating some of the tech challenges, maybe we can just move into our Q&A. And then when Navita joins us, she'll be able to give us her advice for folks who might want to enter the field. So this is the time, if you have any questions for our panelists, please feel free to unmute yourself or drop them in the chat.
I have a question.
Yeah, hi.
So my name is Robbie, and I recently, actually this week, had a phone interview for the school day program manager restorative justice position at Presidio Middle School. And I was able to talk to, Rachel Vincent and kind of go through the first round of phone interviews. And I have like a variety of experiences. When it comes to education, I'm a teacher by trade, and I'm also here at Teach for the Bay because I'm interested in the development of the early childhood education workforce and, and pursuing a part of that track as well. But at any rate, I have a question regarding your your perception of the practice of restorative justice on site. If you happen to have one of your school day program managers fulfill that role. I'm not sure if every school has that particular position, but if you do, I'd be interested to hear what you see as kind of best practices for somebody in that position. So I, nail that second interview. And so you can really help me out if you take a minute to think and then let me know. And then I'll also put my LinkedIn in the chat if anybody wants to connect, because it's always nice to be attached to like Beacon Initiative for folks. So feel free.
Thank you, Robbie. I also just wanted to say, like, to the rest of the folks and to you, Robbie, if any questions come up after this panel, you're welcome to email myself or Jess, and we can connect you to our lovely panelists and maybe anyone else in our network who might be able to answer any specific questions you have. But I'll turn it over to our panelists to answer Robbie's question about restorative justice at your sites.
Can you explain a little more about what position you're going for?
From what I understand, as the school day program manager, restorative practices or restorative justice position, you're expected to have, some supervision from 8 to 10. I know just, from what I read and what was explained in the 30-minute plus minute, phone interview, but it involves, building relationships, building community, working with staff to develop their restorative practices, whether, it's developing, circles in their classrooms or doing like restorative justice trainings or PDs for staff, facilitating circles, I imagine, myself to some degree, but probably more often than not having to coach teachers to become facilitators. Just given my experience in education, I know that some of the, some of it will involve sort of a tiered approach to restorative practices, so that there's sort of the universal, the kind of like, you know, more small group level at the second tier, and then more intensive at the third. And so sort of guiding
Got you.
staff to, you know, develop interventions along those lines of developing circles, whether or not it's community building circles and skill building on that level, or it's restorative justice practices where they have to repair harm
Yeah.
when a student has sort of violated community norms. So maybe you yourself have facilitated a circle, or you've been part of a circle that the manager has organized or has sort of
For sure.
trained staff on.
For sure. So yeah, so restorative practices, yeah, we definitely have that at MLK. That was created to lessen the suspension or referral rate of students, mainly our Black or Brown students. So they came up with restorative practices to try to coach teachers how to not jump quickly to you getting a referral, you get stay out of class, because the whole purpose is to have our kids keep engaged in learning, right? And so just finding ways to um, have circles if class is out of hand. Okay, let's come to a group. Let's have a circle. Let's figure out what's going on. Let's restore the harm that was done. If Johnny cussed me out, let's figure out a way to restore and get me and Johnny back on track. Let me find out what's going on with Johnny. It's not me. Something's going on with Johnny. So I need to figure out what's going on so we restore our relationship of teacher student, right? And so yeah, so definitely, so keep in mind that when you're going for this position, everything is about keeping the student engaged, keeping the relationship between student and teacher to work together, and families as well. So you're building that, you're helping build that community, build that culture.
And then what does that look like on a sort of a practice level? Like, are the students, like, is it a referral process?
No,
how does it look like on a day-to-day kind
so
of?
for us, it's a whole school thing. Like literally, we have advisory periods, which would be homerooms, to where it's based on having circles, having curriculum that the RP teacher come up with. On Wednesdays, when school gets out early, they have PDs on restorative practices.
Okay.
So it's just stuff like that.
Okay.
It's a
All right.
yeah.
Thank you.
And if I can jump in, I think, it has the same core and the same like purpose, and the day-to-day practices might be different based on your school site. But thank you for walking us through what it looks like at MLK, John Michael. If anyone else has any practices around restorative justice that you've seen at your school, please, or on the panel, please feel free to jump in. All right. And again, if any questions come up as you're in your application or like interview journey, Robbie, please feel free to reach out and we can connect you with folks who can answer those maybe more detailed questions that you have around the work.
Would you happen to know that, if the folks that work in that role have sort of an ongoing community of practice meeting where they're able to share and reflect and kind of work together on what they're doing at each of the sites? Do they have that?
So part of the San Francisco Beacon Initiative's role, and I think I spoke to this a little bit at the beginning, but we convene a lot of different groups of folks, from the director level to the supervisor level, site coordinators. We also have a family and behavioral wellness PLC, peer learning community. So, if you are working for a Beacon, you'll have opportunities to come to join other folks in similar roles to discuss those best practices.
Well, thank you for sharing, especially John Michael. Thank you so much.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for asking those questions. Does anyone else have any other questions for our panelists before we close for the evening? Check the chat here. Okay, well, I did want to just point out Navita's advice, and that is I would tell people that are interested in joining expanded learning that you don't have to be an expert now, you grow as you learn. I enjoy out of school expanded learning time because you're able to create your own curriculum. If you feel passionate about a topic, you have the choice to teach youth about it. If there are things youth would benefit from learning about, you can build the knowledge within them. I enjoy learning what youth are interested in and learning about topics with them. I enjoy doing things with them that they want to do. I enjoy sharing a space with them, our conversations, our learning experiences, and them knowing they can come to me for their feelings. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. And then Navita added something else in the chat. Sometimes conversations cannot happen in the moment around restorative justice. You need to wait until a student is de-escalated, which is a really good point. Awesome. Well, we are almost at 8. Thank you so much, Christina, for dropping the evaluation in the chat. Please fill that out when you can. Your feedback is super important, I know, to us at SFBI, and I'm sure to the Teach for the Bay folks. And if we could just, give it up for our panelists. Thank you so much, Justine, Holly, John Michael, and Navita, for joining us and sharing your expertise with us. And for our audience, please feel free to reach out if you have any other questions about beacons or community schools or expanded learning. And I hope everyone has a good night and it's not too hot tomorrow for folks. All right. Yes, our emails are in the chat. And have a good evening, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, panelists.
Yeah, thank
Thank you
you.
for having us.
Thank you. See y'all later.
Yeah, see you later. Thank you so much.
Have a good night, you guys.
Get
You
home
too.
safe, everybody.
Giselle. Oh, wait, I didn't mean to.
I put Giselle in the waiting room.
Is everybody else in the waiting room still?
There's no one else, but I think maybe we can move some of the folks that aren't leaving yet into the waiting room. All right, Navita, thank you so much. I'm sorry you're having tech difficulties. I hope that the Wi-Fi works soon.